So we know that the biggest issue right now is security is only as strong as the weakest link. So bearing that in mind, you may have a specific company or an organisation. That organisation has a number of third parties connecting into it. That could either be, for example, via VPN. You could equally have, for example, portal access, or for example, even physical access. Plus, in addition to that, they also host data out, for example, in the cloud or with the traditional outsourcers. Now, let's take, for example, all of these people connecting in, they also have a number of suppliers that provide services to them, all of which represent a significant risk to this particular company here. Now, the traditional way of giving yourself assurance against all of these third parties is to have a team of internal people actively going out and doing analysis against third parties.
So yes, you have lots of auditors.
Auditors, or even actually internal people going in, checking policies, checking procedures, standards, giving interviews, effectively doing the due diligence against the third parties, which actually you're legally obliged to do. Now, one thing you probably don't do, or probably most organisations don't do, is go to their subcontractors, because actually that's quite an onerous process. But even if you look at from these organisations here, that's quite an onerous process. Now, how much is that likely to cost? Well, a small company could potentially have, let's just say, 1,000 third parties alone. If each of those third parties takes 5 days worth of due diligence, which actually is quite a conservative estimate, you're talking about 5,000 man days, or I think it's about 25 years for one person. Plus, in addition to that, you're also likely to want to spend a certain amount of money to make sure that technically this organisation has the appropriate controls and don't introduce any vulnerabilities. So even £1,000, and I think we know that £1,000 is a fairly conservative estimate for a vulnerability assessment or a pen test, but you're looking at millions of pounds here. And actually, one of the reasons that we as CAMM and we as the group have got together is because this is very expensive, this is very onerous, and what we wanted to do was kind of turn it on its head and say, well, is there a simpler way to do this? And so what we said was, well, let's get together, and they're supposed to be a cog, by the way, so don't judge me on my drawing skills.
It's excellent.
We do a piece of work to identify the risk appetite. So let's just say, for example, we have 2 classes of data, similar to a hotel rating system, and I know people are going to argue about the hotel rating system analogy, but we can say a lot of our data will be a level 1, a lot of our data will be a level 4. What does that actually mean? Well, we then take that and we then put it into our contracts. And we then say in these contracts, if you're providing services to us as a company, what you must do is adhere to level 1, or 4 or 3 or whatever number that is. But equally, the suppliers to you must also be a level 1. So your contracts now are one sentence. And what you now do is you actually avoid, for example, things becoming out of date. So you may, for example, say you've got to be compliant with standard X, Y, and Z. And that standard may well be completely applicable when you give the contract out. But actually now, 5 years on, all of a sudden it's out of date. And also you avoid the issues about, oh, we forgot something. And if you forget something, suppliers will actually charge you more money to put something new into the contract. So here you have one sentence. Now, how does that actually work? So what happens is you have the organisation here, and you have the supplier and their supplier. What you simply say is that this process here must adhere to a certain metric that measures the information risk maturity of that particular organisation. So in other words, a level 1 might well be self-certification. So in other words, we're willing to accept some risk and we will take your word for it. Alternatively, you might say, well, hey, look, do you know what? This data is really important to us. so it's going to be a level 4. Upon which point, we also mandate that it's got to be audited, so you have a trusted auditor partner. Now, we know one of the issues is that if you have 1,000 third parties and you use this, yes, okay, that solves the problem with regards to the contracts, but what it doesn't actually do is avoid the issue of about 1,000 emails and 1,000 Excel spreadsheets, and that's going to take a lot of resource to sit down and go through. So the long-term vision for us here has to be this thing called the third-party assurance centre. And this will be a central repository whereby the third parties can securely upload their scores. Equally, what we have to do is allow the opportunity for the trusted auditor to also upload the scores for that specific organisation or that specific organisation. Now, what they can then do is if they've uploaded their scores, they can then edit the access control to allow the companies that require access to be able to view it. So they can then get assurance. Now, let's have a look how much this now costs. You've got to go through the risk appetite, 2 to 3 days. You've got to upload, say for example, an XML file, and you've got to take the output and you've got to do the analysis. Let's just say that that takes you 3 days in total. Yeah, that's about 2 days. Uploading a file is about 10 minutes, and say a day's worth of work to actually take the results and just get a basic RAG status about your suppliers.
And once you have basically uploaded a status of a supplier, won't it be so that the other companies that are purchasing the similar sort of services, they can verify through the same TPAC?
Company A can do it, Company B, Company C. All of the companies that have a direct relationship that need to get assurances against that particular company can do so. So it's done once. So the total cost now is, let's just say, £300 as opposed to £2 million. Now, one of the challenges that people are going to say, well, okay, if this is going to cost me, let's just say, this third party, let's say it's going to cost you £10,000, right? You're going to have to get you're going to have a trusted auditor, you're going to have to go through due diligence. If they're charging you £100,000 for their services, they're going to charge you £110,000 now, and that's correct. You're going to have a third party, you're going to have you and a third party, and they're going to add 10k to it. But actually, as we start to get economies of scale, as they start to provide services, and as other companies start to use this service, that number starts to go. So what we anticipate is if you have 5 companies, that becomes 2k. But actually, if this becomes a global phenomenon, then that cost is going to be negligible. Now, the advantage for you as a third party here is that you no longer have, an audit from all of your individual suppliers, all of your individual companies. If you have 5,000 customers, chances are you're going to get 5,000 requests for audit, or at least half of that. 5,000 bespoke assurance questions. You only do this once, and then you share everything out again. Now, of course, there's a lot of work to go in, there's a lot of governance, and there's a whole heap of stuff that we need to work out to make sure that this is protected. Now, one of the key issues and one of the key questions that people are going to ask are, well, okay, if you're going to produce a set of common controls, common assurance maturity model controls, how do we, this is only going to be applicable to, 60% of our business or 20% of our business.
Yeah, so you were saying that one size doesn't fit for all.
One size does not fit all, absolutely. So we want to empower the internet. So the first thing we want to do is, with our partners like, say for example, the Cloud Security Alliance and so forth, and ISACA are on the board as well, we would like to be able to produce formal modules. So what you can do is you can say, well, you've got to be CAMM plus, for example, COBET, plus CSA, plus also you can even produce your own bespoke ones. Plus also we can even say, you as a small industry, you can get together with other companies who have similar concerns and produce your own module and upload it. So actually you can then start to have a flexible modular approach to provide assurance, and actually every single person wins, from the end user to the third parties providing access or gaining access to the third parties provisioning as well. And actually all of the feedback that we've got, the only negative feedback that we've had so far is, yeah, it looks quite a lot, and I'm not sure whether you can pull it off, not whether it's a good idea or not.
Yeah, but at least to my understanding, this sort of model has been in fact used with the other parts of the industry things, so we are not in fact inventing anything new here.
The one thing that we are inventing, which is new, is actually the shape shift. We are providing, and I think what Jay Heiser said at Gartner was, we are providing the transparency. So that's the fundamental thing we're doing. We're changing this closed model whereby it's ours, we keep our head in the sand, and we don't share our results with anybody, and you've got to duplicate all of your insurance work each and every single time. What we're actually doing is doing this. And you're absolutely right. Supply chain management, auditing, standards, that's not new. And all we're looking to do is bring it all together. That's really the long-term objective.
Yeah, and we have the modularity over there, we have basically the transparency over there, and that's the most biggest new thing. What do you think from the timeline point of view? What's the schedule for us to release all this?
So we have pilot studies to be launched or pilot activities to be launched in October. The anticipation is we would like to release CAMM and a vision paper this year, and we're hoping for that vision paper to be underwritten by the rest of industry.
Okay. Sounds promising.